And welcome to Season 3, Episode 4 of the Helping Children Learn podcast here at Carbon-Lehigh Intermediate Unit number 21, servicing the Carbon and Lehigh County areas. Today's episode is called Road Dogs. We're talking about our itinerant educators who teach a variety of programs, and they're those who visit multiple classrooms in a day, many times at different locations throughout the region, which again is the Carbon and Lehigh County area. Oftentimes they do not have an office or a desk they call home, doing work anywhere where there is an open table space and maybe a seat to pull up. Itinerants are usually in the continuum of speech and language, occupational therapy, physical therapy, etc. But today I am joined by two itinerants from the Deaf and Hard of Hearing program, Courtney Philman and Amber Gibson. How are we today?
Good. How are you?
So you guys were driving around a lot today, I'm imagining?
Yeah, it's nice in the rain. It's our favorite days.
Least favorite days are the rain days.
So this is what this episode is about, right? So we know that you are in the continuum of deaf and hard of hearing, but really I want to talk to you guys about the lifestyle of an itinerant educator who doesn't have their own whiteboard and classroom to go to every single day. We'll talk about the pros and cons of that. But like we start every podcast, and that is our flagship question. As itinerant educators, how do you ladies feel you are helping children learn? And again, this is kind of a canvas for how you feel about this stuff.
As itinerant, we just go wherever our kids are. So we're meeting their needs where they are at, wherever that may be.
Yeah, like Amber said, we really are seeing that student based on where they are in that moment in time and that age, because again, we work with kindergarten to 21. We just really see where they are and what they need, and we go exactly to them to see them.
Talk to me about your average day. Was the day an average day for you, minus the rain?
No.
Yeah.
So there is no average day, it
No.
seems like. So talk to me about that. Talk to me about how every day can be and probably is different.
We obviously have a set schedule that we follow. Like, we'll make a schedule at the beginning of the year. Day to day, that changes because you have IEP meetings, you have equipment things that pop up, and you have to run and fix them because you're the one who knows how to do it. So yeah, I feel like day to day, you see the same students, like my Thursday kids I saw today, but like most of the time, I'm pretty set schedule, I guess, but definitely changes day to day, like with what I do.
I think it also depends on where you're going for the day. Another huge thing is being able to print or being able to have access to things. So today I had a quick run to the IU to print for an IP meeting that will be happening tomorrow, just so I can have that documentation ready. But another big thing for itinerants is, this week I went to a school and they had no power. So, you're kind of going into a school blind and seeing what's just happening for the day.
But like access to these things that we think are so basic.
Yeah, like emails from the school saying there's no power, we don't get those. We just show up and we're like, oh, okay.
Unless you happen to get that email, but you're not part of their system.
Correct. We're usually not part of their system. We don't really know. Unless it's like an actual, like, they're leaving, early dismissal, we'll get that. But we usually don't know that there's power outage or like a nice assembly happening during your time that you're supposed to see your students.
So then that IEP, whatever you were going to do that day is thrown away.
Correct.
That's where your day-to-day thing kind of comes in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can plan an entire month of lessons, right? Entire month of lessons. And you can go in for a whole day, and all of a sudden the entire day of lessons is completely scratched because you have to do what that student needs, and also because of the environment of a school system with assemblies and kids being absent.
Thanksgiving lunch, that was today.
I want to talk to you about what I wrote about your office space, quote unquote. Talk about when let's say you have 2.5 hours of downtime where, you have to be in Allentown at, let's just say 3, you finished up at 12:30, you don't have to get on the road for another 2 hours. Talk to me about what those 2 hours look like when you're, I don't want to say homeless, but like when you're officeless.
It feels like that.
What are those 2 hours like?
Sitting in a teacher's lounge, most likely, or
Any room
yeah,
available or a hallway.
yeah,
Anywhere with a seat is what I find.
yeah,
Laptop on the lap.
yeah. I usually like to look for an outlet because so I can charge. But usually it's like trying to at least do like STAR or paperwork or something that you don't have time to do because you're seeing kids.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time I feel like I'm being interrupted because like I'm in somebody else's space. So then I have to like pick up all my stuff and go to the next open
You're
free
living
space.
out of your car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's just you hope that no one interrupts you in that space for 2 hours because you're like, please.
I
Well,
really need to get this done.
if we
This
have the 2 hours.
documentation isn't happening without me.
I'm like, if we have the 2 hours.
And hope my phone doesn't ring for an emergency equipment.
Yes. But what I like to do is I like to find a very quiet spot in the school where nobody will bother me and do the paperwork because I become like a hermit at school so that I can get my paperwork done so that I'm not doing it at home.
Yeah, I'm about to go do work at home right now. I get it. As an itinerant, there must be some things that you like, right? Because you wouldn't do this if you didn't love it. We talked about that before we started the podcast. What part of an itinerant do you personally like? Like, what part of this brings you back every day?
I personally love getting into my car after a session. Like, let's say it's a really bad session. I can get into my car and kind of just decompress from that session and just move on to my next student. It's kind of like a fresh new start every day after you see a student. I love that I get to listen to podcasts throughout my day. I think it's just different. You're not in the same building every day with the same people. I also like kind of being my own lone ranger. At first, I didn't like that in my job. Not gonna lie, it was very rough at first. I don't think people talk about that enough. But now, I love it.
Yeah, I like that you're not in the same four walls all day. Like you get to see different people, you get to interact with different people, and every day is not the same. So I like that, and I like that I can like call my mom on the way to school or like from school to school. Like I like those little things that like you don't think you have that. Like as a teacher, you don't have it. Like you can answer a text message, you can actually go to the bathroom. Like it's quick, and that's what I like. I feel like
So we're talking about the lifestyle of an itinerant, but you two are part of the deaf and hard of hearing continuum.
Mhm.
What types of services do you provide to our deaf and hard of hearing kids throughout the day? Like, what are you doing? What do your lesson plans look like?
That's such a great question because a lot of people, I don't think, know exactly what we do.
I can tell you they don't because in this IU, I'm a non-educator amongst educators. So I don't use acronyms all day long.
yeah.
Like I know an IEP is an individualized education plan, but like, does my brother who runs an excavator know that? And that's who we're trying to talk to a little bit. Not like this isn't a show for blue collar workers, but I'm just saying,
Why
you
not?
know, I'm trying to break this down as
Yeah.
much as possible,
Yeah.
so that it's a little palatable and digestible for anyone who listens.
Yeah.
What are we doing throughout the day with these kids?
Lots.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything and pretty much everything for your student. I mean, we are teachers, which people forget sometimes. Like we are sometimes a related service, but we are also a case manager for our students. And we do, academics. We do tons and tons of self-advocacy. We do communication skills.
Listening, following directions, anything that has to do with like I did parts of the ear and my kids made an edible ear out of food to review. Like anything that has to do with hearing loss, anything.
Or related to hearing in the
Yeah.
sense of how it affects their hearing. Like, so your hearing loss, how does it affect you in your everyday life? We talk about disability law. Do they have to disclose their hearing loss?
Their IEP accommodations. What workplace accommodations are you going to need because you have a hearing loss? Can you be a firefighter because you have a hearing loss? So things like that, because a lot of our students, like they know they have a disability, but it's like getting them to understand it and like use it and be able to function on their own after the
Sounds like there's some life coaching.
Yeah,
something
definitely.
going on.
Absolutely.
Because even though these children are part of our special needs continuum, they are maybe the most able-bodied and able-minded
Yeah.
kids that we have.
A lot of our students are district kids. So like we are the ones
Mhm.
going in and being district. We're not at the like we are district, but we're not district, I guess if that makes sense. Like we're still IU employees, but our kids are district kids. So they are in the gen ed classroom. They are mainstream throughout the full school day. So
Yeah, I think the IU, if we're talking about IU classrooms, I think there's Emmaus High School has 2 life skills classes. There's a life skills class at Albertus Elementary that I was just at. So yeah, I think people think of the IU as like these centers,
yeah,
places where kids go, but it's really just like the DHH room at Parkland High School, for example. Christine Block's room. They start the day there, they end the day there, but then their day is just throughout. So you're servicing those types of kids.
yeah, we service any kid that just goes, like, they go to Parkland High School, we service them
Yeah.
because they have a hearing loss. So yeah, it's
and we provide them just with that access. It's all about access and allowing them to have that auditory information presented to them as much as possible in a different way.
I want to hit something you had just said earlier about there's things that you say that people don't really know about it. What's a misconception about an itinerant?
that we're tutors. That was really quick.
That was wow.
Yeah.
I was going to say that we're speech language pathologists or that
Better
we're
too.
audiologists or that
Tutors is a big one.
yeah, but tutors is a huge one that
They need extra support, which we do that. We can give extra support, but it's like,
but in a meaningful way. In a meaningful way,
yeah,
we're
like in
providing
a
that
teacher
extra
way, not a tutor way.
This isn't remedial math.
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
people don't think we're teachers.
That, yeah,
but
that's another
That's
thing.
exactly what we are. So
Title
If
is
all of
tutoring.
these kids came to one place, you'd have a class.
Yes.
You'd have a classroom.
Yeah, if they all needed that support, we would have
But there's
they
not
would have
usually 30 deaf children in one place.
correct. Yeah.
Well, because we just launched the Whitehall Cobley Early Learning Center, which has Laura Sweeney's. She has early intervention DHH students,
Yes.
but there's like 6 of them.
Yeah. And then they
So-
go on to our other classroom, so we really don't even see those kids.
It's a very small population of deaf
Yeah.
hard of hearing.
And that's really the point of you guys traveling.
Yeah.
Correct.
is-
Yeah.
So what school districts do you guys service? Do you go to Carbon County? Do you go from
No.
Coopersburg to
So
where do you
I-
go?
So I cover right now this year Northwestern and Whitehall.
And then I have Parkland and Catasauqua and Northern Lehigh.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are still kind of around.
Yeah,
You're getting
absolutely.
around.
I mean, this is the first year where I'm a little less than I normally am. Thank God for Amber, because it is a lot with the travel and things. But one of the best parts of the job is being able to see our students from year after year.
Yeah.
Like, you get to see students grow in such a unique way that most people don't get to see.
Well, that's how I want to end this podcast. Dr. Coons, when he became the executive director, big thing he hit home to me with this podcast, he goes, I want to hear the stories, right? Because we're talking about the lifestyle and we know it's hard and this, that, and the other. But really the reason you guys come back every day is because of these little success stories.
Yeah.
What are some small W's or small wins, as Dr. Coons likes to call it? What are some small W's that you've had this year, or maybe one early in your career that really hammered it home for you that this is what you wanted to do? Is there anything in particular that comes to mind?
I have a W. One of my students is lately getting implanted, which is kind of unheard of, but
You're talking about a cochlear
a
implant?
cochlear implant. She is going to get implanted. And the W was, I had just showed her an Instagram girl who had a cochlear implant, and I didn't think anything of it. I was just kind of giving her the down low of it. And that changed her whole perspective. And mom was like, you helped so much. She would have never thought about going into the whole process and everything. So it was just cool to see. I only see that child once a month. So I saw her in October and we did that. And now in November, she has her surgery scheduled.
In general, and I don't want to use the word media, but out in the public eye, is DHH not something that's shown a lot? On our celebrities, on our athletes. Is that why that was so important?
Yeah, I feel that was just something I feel she could relate to, and maybe she saw it, maybe she didn't, but now that celebrity has a book and now my student's reading the book, so she's getting that whole process to see through somebody else's eyes. And I think that's just helpful because a lot of there's not that there is deaf and hard of hearing people out there, but to see it in real life is kind of, a lot of students don't see that.
I've mentioned this guy a couple of times on this podcast, but when I used to work at a news station, our weatherman had a cochlear implant.
Okay.
And he was great on the piano and he loved talking to other kids. And so when you see that black magnet on his head every day,
Yeah.
if if you're a kid watching, you're like, hey, I could be a meteorologist.
Exactly.
It's
or a
all
weather
about
person.
visibility.
Yeah.
Yep, especially for our students.
And he never cared what way to turn. He
Yeah.
showed it all the time.
Mhm.
And we always got these emails. What is that? What is that? So it was clear. No one knew what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you deal with that as
Exposure.
well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, we deal with a lot of people calling equipment the wrong thing, like a cochlear implant. They'll call a hearing aid, even though you say cochlear implant 1,000 times to them, they will still say hearing aid.
Can you explain what a cochlear implant is? It's drilled into their skull, correct?
Not drilled, but yeah,
Okay,
there is
placed.
already
It's
there I am.
placed.
Yeah, it is a surgery. It's placed into their.
There's an internal piece that is placed into their cochlea, and then it sits inside their skull area.
Yeah.
And there's an external piece then that will provide them with sound digitally, but both pieces have to be working, and it's very.
I mean, those kids can't get like MRIs. They can't go through like the metal detectors at the airport. Like they're gonna go off then. So it's just like having metal in your body.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So do you have a small W or a small win that really
I
keeps
sure
you
do.
coming back every day? Okay, you
Yeah,
sure do.
I sure do. I was thinking about it. So a huge win for me is when I have had a student for a few years. We're in a session and I have taught all the things prior. And I ask them a question and they know exactly what I'm talking about. I have a sophomore who I've had since first grade. And I can literally say anything about disability law, anything about hearing, and she will know the answer. And just that alone tells me that I have won. So I'm like, you can do my job now. I don't need to.
Yeah, when that happens, I'm always like, okay, I'm done. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a
it just-
huge
yeah,
accomplishment.
that does feel really good. When that happens, you're just like, oh, you actually are listening. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of like,
Because there's a lot of hearing terminology and terms that a lot of people don't understand, but they need to understand in order to understand their hearing loss and disability. So when we get through all of that and they know it, it's pretty amazing.
The reason I even reached out to you about this episode was because you were the first itinerant I had ever worked with. You taught that girl how to Bluetooth a electronic stethoscope
Oh, yes.
to her cochlear
I
implant.
forgot about that.
Or I don't know if it was a hearing aid or a cochlear.
It was cochlear implant.
It's
So
a
she was
metal.
so my student at the time was bilaterally implemented, and she was going into the medical field.
And we saw her at LCTI.
Yeah, we saw her at LCTI, and
She's graduated and gone.
she's in
but-
college. She actually just texted me the other day, and she said, "Hey, Miss Philman, I just wanted to let you know that I just took a test in one of my classes, and it was on the ear, and I passed it with flying colors, all because of you."
That's amazing.
that's your win right there.
And that was like one of the first video. I've been working here coming on to 3 years now. That's like one of the first video projects I ever did. I'll never forget that girl.
She is a cool kid.
Because you were teaching her how to be like a nurse's assistant or a CNA of some sort. And she had that stethoscope locked into her cochlear implant electronically. That was so cool.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I didn't. That's why I reached out to you in the first place.
Because for us, that's just normal. So like
Yeah.
for you, like that's something interesting. Like, you know what I mean? Like we do
Right.
this every day. So seeing that stuff, yeah, it's cool. So I think we also have to remember sometimes that that's cool and why we do it.
Amber, Courtney, is there anything else you would like to add that I am not asking? An opinion, anything you're passionate about the life of an itinerant?
Sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
It is.
You can never
Sometimes
get
hard.
groceries on your way home because your trunk is full of stuff. Like little things that you don't think about as like a teacher. Like you go in, you take one bag in every day and you walk into your classroom and there you are.
Yeah.
I have 11 schools. I walk into 11 different schools throughout a
With
week.
like 4 or 3 bags. Like
Yeah.
there's always something I forget in my car. And my students will be like, "Did you forget this in your car?" And I'm like, "Yes, but please understand it's really hard to remember all these things." Or just even thinking about what to carry into a
Yeah.
building. Like what are you going to need because you don't have a classroom.
Side note though, societally, we have to remember and we have to take in so much information that our brain literally cannot keep up.
Yeah, and there we are trying to keep up with our brain and take
Mhm.
everything in we need for a session.
I
Mm-hmm.
feel
we
like
don't
my
have it.
brain is a clogged pipe. Sometimes I'm trying to speak. I'm like, do I have aphasia at the age of 32? Like that can't be right. But
Yeah.
here we are. Ladies, thank you so much for coming on today. This is our Road Dogs episode. How do you guys feel about being road dogs?
I never thought of myself as that. I don't know if I love that name.
Oh, no. Well, this has been Season 3, Episode 4 of the Helping Children Learn podcast, talking about our on-the-road itinerants. Thank you guys so much for coming on.